Okay, this session is now being recorded. We're going to go ahead and start, and we appreciate you being with us this afternoon for the ECF Window 3 information webinar. If you would please put all of your questions that you have during our presentation in the chat box. We will have time for questions and answers at the end of our presentation. If you would please direct those questions to all participants, Jill is going to collect all of the questions, and we're going to go through them at the end and answer all of those questions. But just please make sure you put it to all participants so that we each can see what your questions are, okay? So this webinar is really designed to highlight the differences in the application for Windows 3 compared to Windows 1 and 2. So we're going to quickly go over those differences. If you are brand new to filing for ECF, we do have some additional information for you at the end. So please stay tuned for that. And I am not going to talk anymore because hopefully you can tell my voice is just not what it should be, so I do apologize. So I am going to sit back and click and turn our presentation over to the team, and then I will be back with you at the end. So this is your North Carolina E-Rate team, Roxy, Sue, Jill, and Adam, sharing this information with you. So team, you'll go ahead, please.
All right. So again, this is about Window 3 for ECF, and just a few quick talking points. We're going to be talking about dates, details, and what you need to know. And so the important dates are this new filing window is going to be open for a total of 15 days. It opens on Thursday, April 28th, and will close May 13th. There will be no out-of-window filing, so if you do not file from April 28th to May 13th, you will not be eligible and you can't file anything late, so the 13th is a hard deadline. And ladies, if you want to confirm, I believe the windows will close at 11:59 p.m., is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so 11:59 p.m. on May 13th, that is all she wrote. Next slide. All right. So Window 1 and 2 applications have already had service end dates extended. So that means that you can get a total of 12 months of service. We're not going to cover this a whole lot of detail. There's a link here in blue that talks about the news brief. Essentially, in a quick overview, if you started your service today, or say April 1st, they have extended it so that you can go to April 1st of 2023. That is independent of the Window 3. So that is related to Window 1 and 2. That's why we don't want to talk too much about it. Window 3 is going to be for services or equipment for receipt on or after July of this year. So everything before July 1st, 2022 is not going to be eligible. This is going to be for your upcoming school year, July 1st to 2022. And the end date for your services or equipment is December of 23. So you get a total window of about 18 months, but you can only apply, if you're applying for hotspots and service, you can still only get 12 months, but what they're doing is they're giving you 18 months to get 12 months of service. So if you apply, but you don't start it until November of 22, you get to November of 23 to get your 12 months of service, but you couldn't go to December and get 13 months. Next slide. And this is kind of the same as Window 1 and 2. Your maximum is $400 a device. So if you're going to get a laptop, Chromebook, or tablet, yes, you can buy a device that may be $800. However, you are only going to be reimbursed for $400 of that device. If you are getting a Chromebook, this is a big important thing. Make sure that you bundle your Google license into the cost of the device. You want to have one line item that shows Chromebook Lenovo 123 includes Google license for, say, $259. You do not want to have Lenovo Chromebook $219, another line item that says Chrome Management $40. You want it all on one line, and that has to be on your quote and your invoice. They have to match. You can apply for taxes up to the maximum cost of $400 a device. So again, if your device is $800, this is just an example, 7% tax, you can only get $28 in tax. If your device is $300, it would be $21. So you can get your tax, just not up to past that $200. Your maximum $250 is for your modem or router hotspot. And if you guys want a firewall, obviously that's something that's important, filtering, firewall, etc. Make sure that they bundle that into the cost of the monthly service. And we may have not written it on here. Ladies, I believe it is $25 a month per hotspot. That is correct?
I don't believe there was a hard
Okay.
price for that. It really went to the $250 for those modem routers. They were thinking for buses and, you know, bookmobiles and things of that nature.
Okay. So just make sure in your monthly cost, if you get service from Verizon Wireless for 10 hotspots and they're $20 a month, make sure that you are bundling anything you need in there as far as a firewall or a content filter, etc. So this is something that you're going to also want to make sure that you are noting is your unmet need. So you're going to want to have documentation, research. As you do these calculations, make sure you keep this for your records. If you had 100 break or that they're going to be obsolete, so Google Management Console says you have 100 that are going out of service July 31st, where you no longer receive the updates. Make sure you note that. Take your screenshots, write it down. You got to make sure that you can document and back up your unmet need. And also, if you're going to have an increase in students or teachers, you're going to need that information for your unmet need as well. So you're going to want to make sure that you document, we're going up, say you're at a K through 8 school, and next year you're going to 9 through 12. And that's 100 students per grade. Make sure you have all your hard notes of that. And another thing that is eligible is leased equipment. So you can get for 12 months of that lease and eligible up to the maximum per device. So if you're in year 2 of a year 3 lease, you can apply for that. One thing that that's been a little bit of a topic of conversation is it starts on July 1st of 2022, but say you don't sign your lease till December, that's something to note. That's why they're kind of giving you the 18 months, because then you're eligible for December to December of your lease. If your lease, you started your lease in December or August or even April. So that's something to think about as well, how your lease factors into the funding window of receiving the eligible services. All right, next slide, sorry.
So some things that you need to consider and that you have to document if you filed in ECF Windows 1 or 2. USAC is requiring some type of narrative so that there is no duplicative funding requests. What does this mean? You asked for 200 Chromebooks last year. You were approved to get your 200 Chromebooks. You got your 200 Chromebooks. And now you're asking for 200 Chromebooks. It just happens to be. That's what you're doing. You need to file in their narrative in my ECF 471, numbered ECF 2021, whatever the amount of digits are. We requested 200 Chromebooks to fulfill unmet need for 200 of our students. This funding year, we're asking for another 200 as our Chrome licensing, as Adam mentioned, is expiring. If you had services for hotspots, again, NC Student Connect provided hotspots. During ECF Window 2, we learned that they were no longer going to support the service. You now are requesting that service support, during ECF Window 2. Well, now you also want to continue it for ECF Window 3. They just need to qualify that your service end date previously in ECF Window 2 was June 30th. As Adam mentioned, they extended that deadline, and we didn't want to talk about it a whole lot, but some folks waited until they got their FCDL to start the service. So that 12 months might flow past June 30th. That's what the service end date is about. You now are going to put a new service start date, and let's just use the example that they went through to September 30th or December 31st, that your new service start date will be January 1st, again, to get you the 12 months of service that you are applying for in Window 3. Unmet need was a big stickler for a lot of folks in filling out their applications. There's not a general consensus at this time that tells us for sure they're going to add a fifth set of questions that are specific now to during the 2022-2023 school year, as there had been on the first two windows where it said, prior to the pandemic, how many students lacked devices, lacked connectivity, lacked both. During the first year of the pandemic, so 2021, how many students did you issue Chromebooks? So we don't know if they're going to go and add now 22-23. So when you had numbers in Windows 1 and 2, if you had 500 students that had an unmet need, and now you have another 30, your unmet need is not 30, it's 530, because it's going to reflect that there was an increase from the first two windows to this new window. And this could be, incoming students, rising students from grades that did not necessarily require devices for remote learning, things of that nature. In addition, as Adam mentioned, Google Chrome Management tells you, yep, these many of your devices are expiring. You just need to document that. So during 21-22, you noted that, yeah, I got 450 devices that are going out of warranty, so to speak. That's why you ordered that many. Well, now in 22-23, you have another 300. Yes, that is an unmet need. Again, as Adam mentioned, growth in enrollment, any changes in enrollment, your EPIC profiles have technically been updated since filing Windows of 1 and 2 for ECF. January, I believe 10th it was, the window closed for EPIC management, where you could have updated the Category 2 budget enrollment numbers. So where in Windows 1 and 2, you were using the previous year's enrollment, and there's a lot of questions from PIA review, regarding student enrollment, and we were qualifying that information for you. If there's been growth, if you have planned growth for next year, you know that we're not going to have those SBF updates in time for this other window filing for 22-23. You'll need to qualify that as well. Age devices, that came up quite a bit for teacher devices, laptops. They're using 5-6 year old laptops. Well, do you have any more of those laptops that are going to hit that 5-6 year old range that cannot provide adequate remote learning? Oh yeah, and we underlined that in the next line, sufficient to engage in remote learning. That is key. You might have some Chromebooks that are working well for your younger learners, but by the time, they've gotten into middle school, yeah, it's a dog. They can't use it anymore. All right? Next slide, please. This is the big piece. Will I be funded? So the FCC and USAC even yesterday cannot qualify the exact amount of funding that is available that's left of that $7.17 billion. During Window 1, they had $4.67 billion in applications. And in Window 2, they had $1.14 billion in applications. There were quite a few errors in those applications. Folks applied for $1,000 laptops, $400 maximum. So there were a lot of adjustments, reducing the original applications. There's $1 billion left, a little over $1 billion. What does that mean? It means, for the most part, that just because you apply this time around, you may get prioritized as to whether or not your school district will receive an FCDL for your application. If it exceeds the amount of monies left. So next slide. What the prioritization actually means, it's based on your Category 1 discount percentage and your urban-rural status. So for those of you who've done E-rate for hundreds of years, you all knew about P1 and P2. Not many of you got P2 funding unless you were real creative with math to get to that 86%, so to speak, or 86.8 or 89 or whatever the number was. Because there's a finite amount of monies left, and because of the way the application windows have gone so far, it's highly probable that this time around they will need to implement this prioritization. You can see the table that's on the screen in front of you, and this slideshow will be available for folks to take a look at if you can't copy all that down. They have bumped up rural school districts. In the past, on the table, the highest percent went to urban districts. So what this means, if your percentage of students in NSLP is between 75 and 100%, and you're considered an urban school district, your Category 1 discount's 90%. For rural school districts, they've increased that to 95%. Remember, the original premise for this program was connectivity. They feel that in rural areas, connectivity is a more difficult and trying experience versus in urban areas. So they want to make sure that any connectivity requests are available to those areas of the country. So what does it mean? If you're a 40% school district and you're looking at, well, can I apply for those? You can apply. I wouldn't count on the funding. ECF Window 1, it was pretty much spot on. You filled out the application correctly. Maybe you had some mistakes. PIA review came through. You worked with them. They were very kind and gentle in correcting and working with you to correct applications. And you got approved. And you all now know what you're going through for your reimbursements because the fund was that large. And there were not as many applications as they anticipated. Window 2, there was still a couple $2 billion left. Heck, we still didn't spend all the money. So now there's Window 3 because it was appropriated by Congress to spend this money for remote learning for our students and library patrons. So just something to keep in mind. 40% school district do not count on this fund. Yes, apply for it, but don't work it into your budget that, oh yeah, I'm going to get this $400,000 or $4 million as some of our school districts got to replenish our Chromebooks that are expiring this year, and then take that $4 million that you would have spent on those Chromebooks and put it in a football field or something. Hold off on the football field. Next.
All right. So just a couple things for after you file, definitely be prepared for your PIA reviews. There's a few things to note that there are some different communication sections. So make sure, if you have any questions, please see us. Go back to some of the other trainings we have. Each form, your 471 that you file for, that has its own communication section. When you file a BEAR for reimbursement 472, that is actually a separate communication section. So just to quickly note that. But make sure that you are prepared for the reviews that will come. Document your student enrollment changes. Document your EOL devices. We've talked about that a couple times, so we don't want to hammer you with the same information. Another thing, proof of non-duplicative requests. Make sure that you're noting, hey, I'm asking for 200 and I asked for 200 the last time. Make sure that you can note and say, this is a different 200. it's not the same, because what they don't want to see is you have the same set of 8th grade students who are 200 students. You bought them a computer last year, and now you're going to buy them another one this year and put it in a cart so they don't have to get it out of their book bag. You know, we don't want to do that. No duplicative as far as hotspot service and the device itself. And new 12-month service request. So if you have a Khajiit that ends July 31st, make sure you have proof that that expires July 31st, and then you have proof that you're going to start a new one that starts August 1st. And make sure that you're documenting these are new students who, if you're going to get 40 new hotspots for new students that came in, make sure that you're noting these are for 40 new students who did not get service the first 2 windows. And if you guys are adding 200 students and 5 teachers, make sure that you note that and that you've got documentation that shows we had 2,000 students and 100 teachers last year. Now we have 2,200 and 105. We just want to make sure that it's easy for the reviewers to be able to look and see what it is that you're applying for and why you're applying for it, and that it's not duplicative and you are basically running down all the rules and they can check a box and say, yep, not duplicative. Yep, that's for new need, that kind of thing. We want to make sure we're as organized as possible and make their lives and your lives as schools easier and get through those PIAs.
So as Roxy mentioned earlier on, are you new to ECF? You know what the letters stand for? Were you afraid of the first 2 windows? Well, if you're interested in a training session that will go in depth on the information about the ECF program, along with how to file an ECF Form 471, we have set up a webinar. It'll be on April 25th at 3:30 in the afternoon, a couple of days before the window opens. There is a link. Again, this presentation will be on our webpage, so you can actively register for that. And if you can't attend, please reach out to your coordinator, and we'll set up meetings to discuss your school's needs. Again, if you're new to ECF, some things that you'll want to get started: quotes. Get quotes from wireless providers if you need hotspots and service, or if you want to take those contracts out of your IT budget and put them into an ECF budget, potentially. Chromebooks, if your IT guy has said, hey, listen, yeah, we've got 275 Chromebooks that are going out, get quotes for these things, because you will have to upload them. You are not required in this program to get multiple bids and do bid evaluations and matrices. You do still, however, have to follow local, county, state procurement rules. So you all know what those are. You've been in this field for a bit. You've been in North Carolina longer than I have. So the link will be there for this webinar. That will be the, yep, I've not seen an ECF Form 471 before. And, you know, we'll walk you through what they look like.
And Sue, if I may interject just to speak up.
Absolutely.
Just a quick thought that came to my head as you were just talking about preparing. You can, of course, file post-commitments. I'm sure it's going to be the same for Windows 3 as it was for 1 and 2. But as you talk to your vendors and get those quotes, something to think about is what you want and what they have available. And so I know a lot of you guys have been dealing with supply chain issues, but something else that's come up a lot and is, of course, very warranted and happens is company gives you 200 of one brand and come to find out 50 of them break. Well, you know you're not going to be buying that again. Think about that as well. Think about what it is that you want. If you want service from Verizon or US Cellular, if one carrier does better than the other carriers, use the next couple weeks if you're going to file for Windows 3 to think to yourself, all right, what service provider do I want? What hotspot model are they going to provide? I've got 3 different Chromebook models in rotation right now. I like this Model A the best. Reach out to your vendors. Say, all right, can you get Model A? You know, it may even be worth noting, hey, is that model that you like so much going to go out of production in the next few months? Just some things to think about as you are preparing for Windows 3 to make sure that you hopefully won't have to file a post-commitment. Of course, we're here to help you if you do, but we can't guarantee how long it may take USAC to get your post-commitment change completed. And so that could cut out a significant amount of time of sitting and wondering and worrying in the future.
Next slide, please.
Okay, USAC is offering 3 opportunities so you can gather more information about the ECF funding. The first webinar is an informational session that you need to register for. The next 2 are office hours, which should allow you to send in questions after they complete their webinar session. So click on the links, get registered, and add these fabulous sessions to your calendar. The dates are April 26th, May 3rd, and May 10th. Everything you need is right there on that slide. Just click and go. Next slide. Okay, and we also have some additional resources for you. You can get to USAC's ECF website with just a single click there. Make sure you hit Control first. And there's lots of information available for you on USAC's website. There's also a link for you to click on for the previous trainings and webinars that were offered by your E-rate coordinators, along with a list of frequently asked questions and a link to our ECF website, which is updated and maintained by Adam. So you know it's a great place to visit. He does fabulous work. The final link is for anyone who has not filed for ECF funding in Windows 1 or 2. So click on the registration link and sign up for the newbie webinar, which is going to be on April 25th at 3:30.
And thank you, Jill, because I actually just updated our training website too, so it's training at the top, ECF training. That has all the information as well as far as from today's webinar and also the upcoming sessions, which your 4 E-rate coordinators here will be going to those sessions as well, so we'll be able to, we'll be in there with you if you go.
All right, next. All right, so if you've got some questions, we've got some answers. So you can type them into the little box there and hit send. Just make sure you send it to all participants, and that way it will show up on my screen. So right now we do not have any questions. Ah, there's one. Haha. So, is the rule still that the devices must be used off campus? We have a lot of 8-plus-year-old computers connected to displays that need to be replaced, but the newsletter that USAC sent out says for off-campus use by students, school staff, and library patrons with unmet needs. So the basic question is the rule still that the devices must be used off campus?
Sue, you or me?
So I'll take it. So
right.
Yes, the purpose of the program was to provide students with a device to sufficiently engage them in remote learning. This is not to build a one-to-one program in your school district. It is not meant to fill Chromebook carts. So when Johnny comes into class, he just grabs, Chromebook out of the cart and sits down in class and deposits it back at the end of the day. This is meant that in the event of any situation at this point, since COVID, well, maybe back, who knows, they can continue their education. So yes, the device needs to be assigned to a student that the student can take home at any given time to continue their learning, to finish their homework, those types of things. Does that mean that, the investigator general is going to show up at Johnny's house to see if that Chromebook is in there? No. Does that mean that they're going to contact you and say, Please provide us the documentation that shows that the 250 Chromebooks you purchased have been assigned to students. Yes. Those types of things. So the 8-year-old computers connected to displays, no, they are not eligible. It's matter of fact, desktop units are not eligible because it's determined that that's not something a student can bring back and forth to school.
All right. Jill, next question, and I can take that one.
All right. Can we bundle accidental damage plans in our request if the total is still under $400 per device?
So from what we have seen, no. Even though if it's under 400, the 400 is the cap, but we have not seen, USAC wants to basically define this device, and they will reimburse you for what is necessary for the device to be used for online learning. And unfortunately, accidental damage is not something that is required for its function. And so that's why we say the Chrome license technically is. So that's why if you bundle it together, but most vendors are going to bundle accidental damage 1 year. It's going to say it. They will not, as part of the program rules, the accidental damage is not considered to be part of the required to make it use. And Sue, I don't know if you have any other comments to add along to that.
I will add a bit because I was ankle deep head first in all of the applications that you all filed during Windows 1 and 2. Folks became creative, vendors became creative, and PIA reviewers started to learn about that creativity. So folks were actually ordering Chromebooks bundled with the Chromebook license, etching, a case, and accidental. And the price of the Chromebook was $329. Okay, doesn't sound bad. Until the PIA reviewer saw the same exact modeled Chromebook from another applicant somewhere else, and it was $279. It was really up to them to go back to the first person and say, is this truly the cost of the Chromebook? And, you know, challenge the quote. As long as the quote showed all that stuff with a single line item and a single cost, pretty much it went through. A lot of questions about white glove service. Sometimes white glove service was approved, you know, for the Apple iCare, and most of the time it wasn't. So accidental damage plan, I would not have those words on my quotes.
That's a great way to put it. Yes, because the USAC says no, but again, creativity. So thank you for going into the...
Oh, no worries. We're a team.
Okay, and we just had a little pop-up in the Q&A that said, but you can request to bundle the Google license with the Chromebook.
Yes.
So,
as far as eligible services list is concerned, licenses are not eligible, which is why they need to be bundled with the Chromebook, because we all know you can't use the Chromebook without the license.
Yep.
All right, next question. Would it be feasible to use this window to help purchase devices for a new school that is opening in the fall of 2022?
My dear friend Silas, as long as your students are taking these devices home with them. So if your new students are assigned a Chromebook with the expectation that it goes into their book bag and goes home with them, yes, it cannot sit in a Chromebook cart. It cannot sit in your tech coordinator's office. It cannot sit locked in a desk in the classroom. It is meant for them to take home. So they do their homework. You know, they're going on vacation and they, you know, can still do their schoolwork. You know, spring break's coming. I don't know if, you know, projects are still assigned like when I was a kid. So to say yes would be against the program rules. To say no could be against what your school is doing with their program. So if the program is that your new students are assigned these devices to take home to continue their education and work, you know, do their homework and things, then yes.
All right, next question. Can the forms we had students, staff fill out in the fall suffice for documentation?
All right. And Belva, if you want to, if you don't mind writing in the chat just to give a little bit more information, are you referring to forms as far as unmet need, or are you talking about basically an inventory form? And I'll kind of give her a quick second to answer that because, yes, unmet need forms. Okay. And Sue, what is your recommendation as far as, I would say for me, this is for service starting in July of this year. So obviously needs change from last fall to this July coming up. So it may not be a bad idea to make sure that your unmet needs are updated for this window 3, but I'm going to let Sue either confirm or deny that.
I agree.
Yeah, and Belva, I'd love to, have an actual one-on-one chat about that one so that, if you've got obviously new students coming in, you haven't had a chance to ask their parents potentially, do you have, internet service in your house? Does your student have a dedicated device for their remote learning to use? So there are ways to give a valid estimate with a valid argument based on the previous forms that your school district collected.
And actually, I was just going to say that too. So for example, if you had 1,000 unmet need and you asked for 600 window 1 and 2, that leaves you with 400 that still have an unmet need. It could be considered window 3. We still have 400 unmet need, but if it were me, I would want new forms or documents that reflect the start date of when you're going to be ordering these devices, just to make sure that you're good to go.
Oh yeah.
Essentially.
No, I got you, Belva. So that, yep, the Khajiits, that you should be good with that,
Okay.
especially if you're extending your service, from the 21-22 school year to now for the 22-23 or whatever part they're in.
All right. Next question. We have seen a lot of damage with student Chromebooks. Would replacing these Chromebooks be considered a duplicate request if we can pull the data showing how many devices were disposed of throughout the year?
Sue, you or me? I'm good with either.
We should just start talking over each other. So this is an absolute unmet need.
Yes.
You had, you bought 400 devices during window 1. At some point, summer break, spring break, winter break, you got Ziploc baggies with parts and pieces of Chromebooks in them returned to you. You pulled out old stock or something to give that student for the rest of the school year. Yes, you have documented proof that that item is no longer available to provide adequate remote learning for your students. That's the biggest key. Keep reflecting on that. Adequate device for remote education.
And just as a quick add to Sue too, I would make sure as far as documentation, you got a list of serial numbers. So if you had, if you ordered 300 of them in window 1 or 2, and you've got those 300 serial numbers with who they're assigned to for your ECF documentation, obviously with your serial numbers, say 50 of them you sent to surplus, have a note that says from the surplus company where they went to with that list of serial numbers so that you can show an auditor or a reviewer later on that says, yes, here's my sheet that shows these 50 went off to surplus because they were not able to be used, or that you deleted them from your Google console or something of that nature.
All right, and I'm going to combine just a little bit here. What were the dates that a lease must land between, and can payments on a lease that is currently in place and is being paid in the time frame be paid for with ECF funds?
Yes. So the lease, as long as you have that lease device, during the window of July 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2023, it is eligible. You can get up to 12 months in that 18-month time frame. What we have heard that may be a factor or something to consider is when you initiated your lease. So if your lease is April, and so you paid your lease April of 2022, and then you're going to April of 2023, that's just, USAC has not been super, they may reduce it to 10 months or something. You're supposed to be eligible for 12, but we have seen where if your lease is in April and it starts in July, that's a possibility that may happen. But yes, the payments on your existing lease are eligible. Sue, do you have any to add?
Yeah, so just a clarification. If you're currently on lease and it goes, April 1st of 2021, as Adam mentioned, to, whatever it is, March 31st of 2022, and you start up again for April 1 of 2022, you can only apply for that lease beginning July 1st of 2022. However, yes, if this is like year 2 of a 3-year lease or year 3 of a 4-year lease, so if you're following where I'm getting, you still have months afterwards, you can apply for a 12-month lease, even though your contract is, 4 years or 3 years and expires well past the December 31st of 2023. So, we're trying desperately to qualify what the 12 months means. Folks applied for leases, and this is where we learned that their lease started on a January 1st, so they could only get 6 months with ECF Windows 1 and 2. And that was it, because when their lease started. If, however, that was their year 2 starting in January 1st, they still were eligible to apply for 12 months. It's a little bit quirky. David, I'm not sure who your E-rate coordinator is, but please reach out to us and we can have an absolute, okay. So Cindy's got this, come on. She's the bomb on leases. That's where we learned most of this was going on in the school districts. I read plenty of those applications. So in your Q&A, you also asked if payments on a lease that's currently in place and being paid in the time frame. Yes, you can definitely use ECF funds, for 12 months worth of in ECF Window 3, beginning July 1st. So if your current lease ends, and you've already got funding through, that's where you have to do the math. Oh, last one, huh? Dang. Okay.
All right. This is the last question I have, so if you have one, go ahead and get it typed in there. Can I generate a PO in May for devices using local funds and then pay for it with ECF if we get a FCDL?
Okay. Adam loves to talk about this. We all love to talk about it. Remember this, ECF is not a grant. So if you're putting in an application for Chromebooks, you need them anyway, right, Jeremy? I'm assuming you need them. So you're going to put in a PO. It's going to be based on what your current budgets have available for you to purchase these Chromebooks. Do not receive them before July 1st. So you can put your PO in May. You could have that quote that you got sometime in May to substantiate what you're requesting from ECF. You're not going to receive the devices until July. We're hoping to the gods of ECF that they're going to process FCDLs on a more timely basis, since it's a finite amount of funding available, and that you'll have your FCDL in July, or be told, sorry, didn't qualify because of the prioritization, whatever the reason may be. And then yes, you then can submit that invoice for that equipment based on your application to ECF for reimbursement.
And as Sue kind of had mentioned before, I would not, if you're going to do that and base it on, you know, hey, I'm going to submit this now early, I would not put that into my budget that you will absolutely get that money back. Just because, of course, until you have a funding commitment decision letter, I would not, I would treat it maybe as a, boy, I hope we get this, but if we don't, it's not going to impact our operating budget or something like that, especially with the prioritization of this third window.
I mean, just so everyone knows, the prioritization has always been there for ECF. It's just that the applications fell far short of the monies that were appropriated in Congress for this program. So they opened a second window, thinking, okay, folks asked for $4.6 billion before. If we open the second window while people have more time to apply and had the summer to think about this, had school openings and said, oh, shoot, I don't have all the Chromebooks I thought I had, it still didn't use up, you know, the bucket. So it has always been there. It's just now it's more prolific because the amount of money is no longer, you know, 2.7 billion. It's about $1 billion. I know that for me, I could roll around in $1 billion. I still would probably drown. But think of it across the country. Yes, exactly, Dave.
Exactly, David.
Yeah, sorry. I was looking at your application earlier today. We finally got access to invoicing.
And yes, that's something else to think about when you're doing this is you get an FCDL, that's step one. You still have to file the 472 for your reimbursement if you decide to do the BEAR method. If your service provider will spy it, great.
Yeah.
But if you're doing a, yeah, please do. If you're doing a BEAR, that's a whole nother step that may cause complications. And so don't count those pennies until you see it hit your bank account.
Yeah, because the money is like 10 steps behind the BEAR, and it could be many, many months. Exactly.
And you could run into something in PIA that, you know, so that's something that, again, that we ran into is these applications, you know, obviously USAC is a large company. They have a lot of different reviewers. So a reviewer might not have caught something in your FCDL and in your 471 application that all of a sudden a 472 reviewer does catch, or something changes. Or, for example, you didn't bundle at first and then your invoice is bundled, or your invoice was not bundled and your quote was. That could either cause major delays, or it could mean that your BEAR altogether is you get nothing, and they could, you know, so it's a long process to get through. And one thing too, just to note, is if you get an HP computer at $259 and then a quantity 200, so we say 200 HP computers at $259. Your vendor comes back and says, I can't get you 200 HPs, but I can get you 250 Dells at a cheaper price. You cannot up your quantity. That 471, you asked for 200 at X price, and what they will do is they will offer or essentially reimburse you or agree to reimburse you for 200 at the lower price. So if you get approved for $75,000, that's not a fluid $75,000. That is $75,000, which is the total sum of its parts. So the parts are important in what your total commitment amount is. It's not fluid. So that's just something also to keep in mind.
Okay, Jill, do we have any other questions?
Just over in the Q&A, it says having a list of devices, sorry, got to put my glasses on. Deprovisioned devices due to damages would be sufficient for documentation.
Absolutely.
We don't, yeah, let's say we don't have a hard, but it should be if you show that you took them out of your Google Management Console, they're not usable without it. So.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you that have filed, that narrative, yeah, I'm going to say this out loud, was pretty much ignored by PIA reviewers. That narrative became the only way that PIA reviewers learned that what you were asking for was legit. So we just, we spoke with, management above those folks, and it got much better, especially through the second window of reading the narrative. So while you do not have to upload that spreadsheet, that document, whatever it might be, that shows the deprovisioned or whatever the words you need to use devices, have it on hand so that if you are reviewed and asked about it. Because remember, anything ordered through ECF funding, you have to absolutely track its whereabouts for 3 years. So if you assign a Chromebook to Billy, who's an 11th grade student, and he has it in 11th grade and has it in 12th grade, that better be coming back to you when he graduates. And then if you give it to Jimmy, as a freshman, that Jimmy has it. And after that, that's fine. You just have to hold on to the paperwork for 10 years. So, and obviously a Chromebook, for the most part, is, DOA in 3 years.
Okay, so that is all the questions we have.
Righty. So that takes us to wrapping up the end of our presentation. So if you don't have it, this is our contact page, and it tells you who is leading which area, the LEAs and the charters, and our email addresses. But I think most of you already have that information, but regardless, here it is again, and it will be posted along with the rest of this presentation. We want to thank each of you for joining us. We will post the presentation in just a few minutes, so it will be up on our ECF page on our website. And then as soon as I can get the recording ready, it will be up as well, probably by mid-morning tomorrow. And also, I want to apologize because I think you guys heard my coughing fit a few minutes ago. Although I thought I had my headset muted, but I don't think it was. So anyway, my apologies. So hopefully we will see you guys at some of the USAC presentations. And for those of you new to ECF, you will register for our webinar later on this month. And please reach out to any of us if you have any questions on anything you have outstanding on Windows 1 or Windows 1 or 2, and if you need any help with Windows 3. All right, so thanks again for joining us, and take care. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
You will.
Thank you.